October 3rd, 1849. A man collapses outside a tavern in Baltimore, delirious, trembling, dressed in another man's clothes. When bystanders kneel beside him, they recognize the face. America's master of the macabre, Edgar Allan Poe. He's rushed to Washington College Hospital, where for 4 days he drifts between silence and feverish mutterings. He never sighs, regains the strength to explain where he has been or what had happened. The official cause of death? Congestion of the brain. A phrase that explains nothing, yet conceals everything. Tonight, we step into the shadowy space between life and legend to retrace the final week of a man whose imagination gave birth to American horror and whose death remains the darkest story he ever inspired. Before the world whispered his name in dread and fascination, Edgar Allan Poe was a man of contradictions, both celebrated and cursed. He was born in 1809, orphaned by the age of 3, and raised by a wealthy but cold foster family in Virginia. He was brilliant, mercurial, and restless. A soldier, a student, a poet, but never content. By the 1830s and 1840s, his pen began shaping a new kind of American nightmare. He wrote of black cats and telltale hearts, of ravens that spoke and lovers buried alive. The Fall of the House of Usher, The Telltale Heart, The Pit and the Pendulum, The Raven. Each tale dripped with dread, guilt, and the creeping madness that blurred the line between dream and death. But while his imagination soared, his real life collapsed. His young wife, Virginia Clem Poe, died of tuberculosis in 1847, a loss that shattered him. Poverty haunted him as surely as his own characters were haunted by guilt. He quarreled with editors, lived on borrowed money, and battled bouts of depression and illness. Yet by 1849, Poe seemed poised for redemption. He had found purpose again, lecturing to adoring audiences across the South and reconnecting with Sarah Elmira Royster, his first love from youth, now widowed. They planned to marry that fall. Stylus, a publication he hoped would redefine American letters. Friends described him as calm, sober, even joyful. And then, without warning, he vanished. On September 27th, he left Richmond for Philadelphia to oversee an editing job. He never arrived. No letters, no sightings, no trace of where he went or how. 6 days later, he appeared again, stumbling through the streets of Baltimore, confused, wearing cheap, ill-fitting clothes that were not his own. The poet of shadows had stepped into one himself, and when he emerged, he would be only a whisper away from the grave.
He was taken to Washington College Hospital, where he lingered for 4 days, drifting in and out of feverish delirium. On October 7th, 1849, Edgar Allan Poe died, alone, frightened, and still speaking in riddles no one could understand. No one knows what happened in those lost days between Richmond and Baltimore, but from the silence he left behind, a chorus of theories arose, each one equally dark and intriguing. Theory 1. The poison in the bottle. The first theory, and perhaps the simplest, blames alcohol. Poe had a reputation for heavy drinking, though those closest to him insisted it was overstated. He had, by all accounts, sworn off liquor entirely. But Baltimore in election week was a dangerous place for a man with Poe's history. Taverns spilled out onto the streets. Politics turned to brawls. Cheap whiskey flowed like water. Some claimed he relapsed, others swore he hadn't. He was said to have reacted violently, even to a single glass of wine. Could a moment of weakness have sent him spiraling toward death? If so, it doesn't explain why his doctor later noted there was no smell of alcohol on his breath, no tremors of intoxication, only delirium and fear. Yet something about his death doesn't fit the story of drink alone. The missing days, the wrong clothes, the confusion. To find the truth, we have to look beyond Poe, to the strange practice that ruled Baltimore's back alleys every election season. Theory 2. The cooping. Baltimore in 1849 had a sinister secret called cooping. Criminal gangs would abduct strangers, beat or drug them, and force them to vote multiple times under different disguises. Victims were often plied with alcohol, made to change clothes, and dumped once the polls closed. And where was Poe found? Outside Gunners Hall, one of the city's polling stations, wearing clothes that were not his. The theory fits disturbingly well. His missing days, his condition, even his delirious confusion. Imagine, the author of The Black Cat and the Raven, forced into a grim farce of democracy, staggering through the fog of Baltimore, a puppet in someone else's crime. It's poetic, it's plausible, and perhaps too perfect. But like many of Poe's own tales, the best fiction hides behind truth. The cooping theory explains much, but not everything. His delirium, his terror, his strange final hours.
Theory 3. The diseases of the mind and body. Some modern doctors believe Poe suffered from rabies. His symptoms, fever, confusion, agitation, and inability to drink water, matched the disease almost perfectly. He died within 4 days, the average timeline for rabies in the 19th century. But no animal bite was ever recorded. Others suspect chronic illness, diabetes, epilepsy, or even a brain tumor. Each could explain his erratic moods and sudden decline. But 1849 medicine was blind science. The attending physician, Dr. John Moran, offered conflicting accounts over the years. One moment claiming Poe called out imaginary names, the next that he spoke clearly before the end. If disease claimed Poe, then his death was merely a cruel twist of nature. But for a man whose life was marked by rivalries, debts, and broken hearts, nature may not have acted alone. Theory 4. The enemies and the lover. Poe made enemies as easily as he made stories. Critics despised him, editors feared his wit, and his pen had a sharp edge. Some believe revenge may have played a part, that someone from the literary world or a man connected to his fiancée struck him down. Sarah Elmira Royster's family had once forbidden their love, and they were none too happy about its rekindling. If someone wanted Poe gone quietly, they succeeded. But no proof survives, only suspicion, fading like the ink of his letters. Whatever claimed Poe's life, his story didn't end in that Baltimore hospital. He was buried in an unmarked grave at Westminster Burying Ground, a modest corner of earth for a man whose imagination reshaped the world. For decades, the spot lay nearly forgotten until a new monument was raised in 1875. Marble, solemn, and strangely imperfect, its carved date of birth off by a single day, as if even in death, Poe refused to align neatly with the facts. And then came the visitor. Every January 19th, before dawn, a shadowy figure would appear, leaving 3 red roses and a bottle of cognac upon the poet's grave. No one ever saw his face. No one ever learned his name. They called him the Poe Toaster. Some say it was a tribute, others a secret order keeping vigil over the father of American horror. Whatever the truth, the ritual lasted for over 70 years, as if even the dead refused to let Poe rest in silence. Whether by hand, by chance, or by his own frailties, Edgar Allan Poe was gone. And with him,
the answers to every question his death inspired. The doctors, the witnesses, the rumors, all offered pieces of a puzzle that would never fit. Perhaps some doors are not meant to be opened. And perhaps, for Edgar Allan Poe, the greatest mystery was always himself.